Hello and welcome, kindergarten families. My name is Jessie Garner, and I'm the literacy coach here at Forest Pond. Thank you so much for joining me today as I talk about ways to grow and support young writers at home. I bet you've noticed a lot of changes in your children over the last few weeks as they've begun to identify themselves more and more as writers. Your children are probably coming home super excited to show you how they write their name, and maybe they've even shared with you a book that they've written at school. There are high expectations for them this year as writers, and you will be amazed at what they can accomplish or what they will accomplish by the end of the year. Your children have just finished up their first writing unit where their teachers have capitalized on their eagerness to learn, pretend, and more importantly, their desires to live like writers. Here is where teachers have begun to build the foundational skills that students will carry with them throughout their writing life. Over the past few weeks, students were introduced to and learned what it looks like and means to be a part of the writing workshop. They've learned that the writing process for them begins with an image or a picture in their head and then is followed by drawing a picture, where they are encouraged to use their best approximation of spelling to label their picture with the different sounds and the sounds that they hear in the words. Um, your child has even begun to practice planning across pages of a booklet, and they've even been introduced to the very early stages of revision and editing. Already, your little writers have had the opportunity to write information books that teach the reader about something that they are experts in. They've also had the opportunity to write true personal stories. I'm sure you're thinking right now, wow, my child sure has been busy growing into writers. And I couldn't agree more. Writing, just like speaking, follows a progression of developmental stages. So, just like you listened to, accepted, and praised your child's early attempts at speaking, from cooing and babbling and baby talk to speaking to your child so that they could hear the correct pronunciation of words, you too can support your child's written language development in much the same way. So, just like your child went through those several necessary stages in the development of oral language, written language development also follows predictable stages, and being familiar with those stages can help you support and grow them as writers at home. So, when we think of what these stages look like, we can first look at the print. It is important to note that what I share with you today your child may have already been doing or have gone through some of these stages prior to kindergarten, and that is totally developmentally appropriate. So, our first stage in the development of print is the scribble. From there, we move on to mock letters and then letter strings. So, here with the letter strings, children are understanding that letters carry meaning. They aren't at the point where they're trying to match sounds with the letter, but just they know that this represents meaning. And then from there, we're attempting to label. So for most kiddos entering kindergarten, this is the first work that they're going to be doing, where they draw a picture and they're going to attempt to label it. Now, some kids might not have the correct letter to match the sound in the picture, but that's okay. And from there, they move to the salient sound letter label. And what that means is that whichever sound they hear most prominently is the sound that they're going to write down. So if our picture is leaf, that last consonant sound is really what's lingering, what they're still hearing. So that's what they're going to put down. From there, our little writers are going to transition into drawing the picture and then labeling with initial letter, and then the initial letter and the final consonant sound. And as they continue to progress through the stages, they're going to include the middle vowel. Now, this middle vowel might not always be correct, but at this stage, they're writing down the initial sound, the middle vowel, and the ending sound. After that, we begin seeing kids move into phrases that go along with the picture, and then from there, the sentences that again go along with the picture. So, keeping this new knowledge of print development in mind, let's kind of look at some student samples to see what we can kind of notice and study how your little writers are going to grow as the year moves on. So this first sample, you can notice that it looks like, for us, just a bunch of scribbles. This is a really important step in the development of writing because it suggests that the child had some idea or picture in his or her head, and they wanted it to put it down onto paper. Now, they may not know or be able to communicate what that image or story is, but it's important to recognize and to celebrate that this is an early sign of writing. You could even say that there are some evidence of mock lettering with these little hash marks. This could potentially be a U, but it's an important first step. And from here, students are going to continue to draw that, start with the drawing, and they may do more drawing than writing. The picture may have some pieces to it that are recognizable. So it looks like in the corner there might be a sun, whereas down here this could potentially be a person. The child may be able to tell you what is going on in this picture. What appears to be scribbling to us is actually an imitation of writing. It's very linear in nature. That child is imitating print. And so this is real quite evident that this child is aware that print and art convey meaning. And here again, we have two examples where both writers are very aware that the art and the print convey meaning. So these are our letter strings where the little writer is noting that you put letters on the page to represent words. These words don't, or these letters, excuse me, don't have a real relationship to sound yet, but it's important to celebrate that they are getting one step closer. So here is where some of your kiddos are going to be currently in the kindergarten classroom. They're starting by drawing a picture and then they're labeling it. And if we remember back to that slide where I showed you kind of like the progression of print development, the next stage would be labeling the picture with an initial letter sound. So here you have an R for roof, an H for house. And here in this picture, you have an M, what looks like to be on a box of French fries to kind of represent McDonald's. And one thing that I really love about this page is that you could say that this even seems to be some evidence of some speech or talking bubbles. Now, as we kind of continue to progress and grow, we still have our pictures. And now our labels are expanding to also include an ending sound. They're also beginning to include phrasing or short sentences. So for this writer, he or she wrote jumping rope. and friend. So again, they're writing down the sounds that they hear most strongly in the word. And then right next to that, we have a picture where there's a rainbow. And if you look right here in this corner at the label, where there's the R, the B, and the O, we have that initial sound, we have the middle sound, and then what the child is hearing at the end of the word. This child has also begun to attempt to write sentences to go along with their image, their story. So I see the house and rainbow. So here are just a few more examples of the child labeling the picture and attempting to include text to go along with it. And as you can notice, not every word is going to be spelt correctly, and that is developmentally appropriate. So here's where we're really seeing the writing develop into more conventional writing as we know it as adults. And there's a couple really great things happening in this student sample. So we have our pictures, and these pictures clearly tell a story, a personal story about what the child perhaps does in the morning or at night as they're getting ready for bed. The pictures also have labels. Again, not every word is spelled correctly, but we would not expect that at this point. But we see where they're including initial sounds, ending sounds, and that middle vowel sound. So we know that this right here is a sink. Here we have a mirror, a light, and of course the student. And then when we see the sentence, I was brushing my teeth, there's a lot of great things going on in this one sentence. So we can tell that the child is trying to visually remember how to spell words. And we can see evidence in that with the correct spelling of the snap words or high frequency words like I, was, and my. And they're high frequency because these are the words that show up most often in reading and in writing. And so it's really important for students to be able to read those and spell those words in a snap. We're also seeing with the word brushing, this student's ability to think about multi-syllable words and include those as well. And our final example, and this would be something closer to the end of the year, is a child's ability to write a story from beginning, middle, end across pages. At this point, you're going to start seeing that there's more spacing in words. There might be more than one sentence on the page. Even if they don't have end punctuation or a clear capital letter at the beginning of the word, you're seeing these things begin to take shape. So a good example would be right here at the middle of the story. My friend met us at the street. We did not know. So those are two clear sentences despite not yet having the end punctuation. So now you're probably thinking, this is all great. What are some ways that I can support my young writers as they develop through these stages? And I have a couple tips for you on how you can do that. So the first tip is to have students practice writing their name. Names are extremely meaningful to young children, and they're typically very interested in learning how to write the letters in their name. And this is super important because it provides the foundation for alphabet knowledge, letter writing, print concept, and spelling. My second tip is to model writing for authentic purposes. So next time you're writing a grocery list, you're sending a text message, maybe you're even kind of getting ready to send out holiday cards, let your kids be a part of that. Tell them what you're doing and why you're doing it, because we want to make a clear connection that writing isn't just something we do at school. It's something that has real purpose that we do every day. My third tip is to encourage drawing of pictures and adding detail. So if you're seeing that your kids are drawing these great pictures, ask them or guide them into how they could add detail. So that could be adding color. It could be adding a background setting, but all of those would be adding details. Number four is one of the most important tips I can give, and that's to appraise their attempts at writing. Here is where you can let students know what you have noticed in their writing. That could be noticing um, when they write the first letter sound in a word correctly. It could be noticing how they included a snap word and how they worked really hard to visually remember what that word looked like. It could also be celebrating how they did not give up when faced with a tricky word. So maybe they asked you how to spell the word mountain. Well, we can't expect a 5 or 6 year old to write that word correctly, but we can encourage them to write down the sounds that they hear. So maybe you're celebrating that they took the effort to try to write down the sounds that they hear in that word. Number five is I encourage you to practice the snap words or those high frequency words that the teachers send home. Again, you want your kiddos to be able to read, write, and spell those words in a snap. Number six, ask questions. When you see a child drawing or attempting to write, ask them as a way to nudge your writer into expanding their idea. So ask them, where did you get that idea? Or what else do you remember from when we did that? What do you think the reader still needs to know? Those are some great questions to help nudge that writer. My number 7 tip is that writing should be free of risks. So avoid over focusing on punctuation and spelling. When you focus on errors, you risk stifling the writer from taking risks and problem solving in the future. Your child's teacher will help them make developmentally appropriate corrections. You just encourage and you celebrate. And the last tip is probably one of the most important tips, yet is probably one of the hardest to do. As a mom and a former teacher, I get how hard this tip is that I'm about to ask you to do. You want to support spelling attempts and mistakes, but you do not want to spell the word for your child. You want to encourage approximation and value and praise the effort and problem solving instead. So if your child looks at you, which they probably will, to help spell a word, instead of giving it to them, help them sound it out and acknowledge that the sounds that they can hear and have them write them on the page. Remember, it's developmentally appropriate. They don't have to get them all right or every single letter in that word correct. So just again, support and praise that effort. And as we are finishing up today, I want to thank you again for taking the time to sit down and listen to ways that you can support and help grow your young writers at home. I wanted to give a little shout out to Casey Pageant. She is our parent liaison. If you are looking for some additional resources or ways to support your growing writers, I suggest reaching out to her. One of the resources that she has are different like handwriting resources. So if you want to help your child be more confident in letter formation, she has some resources that she would love to share with you. Again, I'm Jessie Garner. My information is on this last screen. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions. And you know you can always reach out to your teachers. So thank you again for spending some time with me today.